Marcus Chun wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag, squinting at the massive starship that had just docked at Station Omega-7. The ship was unlike anything he'd ever seen in his 15 years working the docks. Its hull gleamed like polished obsidian, decorated with intricate golden patterns that seemed to shift and move in the artificial light. This wasn't some trader vessel or military transport. This was royalty. Holy stars, whispered Jake, his co-worker, dropping his plasma wrench. Is that what I think it is? Marcus nodded grimly. Draconian Imperial cruiser. Haven't seen one of those since the war ended. He tried to keep his voice steady, but his heart was hammering. The Draconians had conquered most of the known galaxy, crushing human resistance wherever they found it. Earth was nothing but a memory now, turned to glass and 20 years ago. The docking bay fell silent as the massive airlock hissed open. Steam poured out, and through it stepped figures that made every human worker freeze in terror. The Draconians were tall, elegant beings with scaled skin that ranged from deep emerald to midnight black. Their eyes glowed with an inner fire, and when they moved, it was with the fluid grace of predators who had never known fear. But it was the figure at the center of the group that made Marcus's blood turn to ice. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, her scales a brilliant crimson that seemed to pulse with their own light. Golden horns crowned her head, and her eyes were like molten amber. This was Empress or Tetricess, the Dragon Lady herself, ruler of the Draconian Empire and the most feared being in the galaxy. All humans will cease work and maintain position, announced one of her guards, his voice echoing through the bay with mechanical precision. Her Imperial Majesty requires inspection of this facility. Marcus stayed perfectly still, but his mind was racing. What could the Empress possibly want with a backwater repair station like Omega-7? They mostly fix cargo haulers and the occasional patrol ship. Nothing that would interest someone who commanded 1,000 star systems. The Empress moved through the bay like she owned it, which Marcus supposed she technically did. Her guards flanked her, their weapons gleaming with deadly energy. She paused at various workstations, examining equipment and occasionally asking questions in the musical language of her people. Her translator rendered everything into flat, emotionless human speech. "This facility appears adequate," she said to one of her advisors. "We will require extensive repairs to the secondary hyperdrive array. Local workers will be sufficient." Marcus felt a chill. Local workers meant them. Working on an Imperial ship was dangerous enough, but the Empress's personal vessel? One mistake, and they'd all be vaporized. The Empress continued her inspection, moving closer to where Marcus stood. He kept his eyes down, focusing on the oil stains on the deck plating. The last thing he wanted was to accidentally make eye contact with the most powerful being in the galaxy. "You," came her voice, sharp and commanding. "Human, look at me." Marcus's head snapped up before he could stop himself. The Empress was standing directly in front of him, her molten eyes studying his face with an intensity that made him want to run screaming. Up close, she was even more terrifying. Her scales seemed to ripple with inner fire, and he could smell something like cinnamon and lightning in the air around her. "What is your function here?" she asked. "A mechanic, Your Majesty," Marcus stammered. "I fix things. Engines, mostly." She tilted her head, studying him like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "Your hands," she said suddenly. Marcus looked down at his hands, confused. They were calloused and scarred from years of working with tools and hot metal. Nothing special about them. "Show me your hands," the Empress commanded. Trembling, Marcus held out his hands, palms up. The Empress leaned forward, her massive form casting him in shadow. Her eyes fixed on something, and Marcus saw her expression change. The cold Imperial mask slipped for just a moment, replaced by something that looked almost like shock. Around his neck hung a simple chain with a small pendant. It was nothing fancy, just a piece of carved stone shaped like a dragon in flight. His mother had given it to him before she died, telling him it was all she had left of her own mother. It wasn't worth anything, just a piece of sentimental junk he'd never had the heart to sell. But the Empress was staring at it like she'd seen a ghost. "Where did you get that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the station's generators. "It was my mother's," Marcus said, confused by her reaction. "She gave it to me before she died. Said it belonged to my grandmother." The Empress straightened slowly, her eyes never leaving the pendant. Around them, her guards shifted nervously. Even they could sense something had changed, though they clearly didn't understand what. "What was your mother's name?" the Empress asked, her voice still strangely quiet. "Sarah Chun," Marcus replied. "She died when I was 16, working the uranium mines on Kepler 442. The Empress was silent for a long moment, and Marcus could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. Finally, she spoke, but not to him. "Clear the bay," she ordered her guards. "All personnel except this one." "Your Majesty," one of the guards protested. "Security protocols require." "Now," the Empress snapped, and her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. The guard stepped back as if he'd been struck. Within minutes, the bay was empty except for Marcus and the Empress. She stood motionless for what felt like an eternity, studying him with those terrible, beautiful eyes. "Do you know what that pendant represents?" she finally asked. Marcus shook his head. "Mom never told me much about it, just that it was important to keep it safe." The Empress moved closer, and Marcus fought the urge to run. When she spoke again, her voice was different somehow. Less commanding, more human. "It is the seal of House Vaelthera," she said. "One of the oldest noble houses of the Draconian Empire. There were only 12 such pendants ever created, and they have been lost for over a century." Marcus stared at her, not understanding. "I don't know what that means." "It means," the Empress said slowly, "that your grandmother was Draconian nobility, and if she had this seal—" She paused, seeming to struggle with something. "She would have been very close to the imperial family." The world seemed to tilt around Marcus. "That's impossible. My grandmother was human. My mother was human. I'm human. Are you?" the Empress asked quietly. She reached out with one clawed hand, stopping just short of touching the pendant. "May I?" Marcus nodded numbly, too shocked to refuse. The Empress's claws were surprisingly gentle as she lifted the pendant, examining it closely. As she did, something impossible happened. The carved stone began to glow with a soft, golden light. The Empress gasped and stepped back, her eyes wide with something that might have been fear or wonder or both. "By the eternal fire," she breathed. "It is true." "What's true?" Marcus demanded, finding his voice. "What's going on?" The Empress looked at him for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried a weight of centuries. "Your grandmother," she said slowly, "was my sister." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He staggered backward, shaking his head. "No," he said. "No, that's crazy. You're lying." "I do not lie," the Empress said sharply. "Princess Lorelei of House Vaelthera disappeared nearly 70 years ago during a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim. She was my younger sister, and I loved her more than life itself. When her ship was found destroyed, we assumed she was dead. But if she survived, if she somehow made her way to human space..." Marcus felt like he was drowning. "This is insane. I am nobody. I'm just a mechanic." "You are the grandson of a draconian princess," the Empress said, "which makes you my great-nephew. Which makes you..." She paused, seeming to calculate something. "Fourth in line to the imperial throne." The pendant around Marcus's neck was glowing brighter now, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Around them, the air itself seemed to thrum with energy. "I don't want a throne," Marcus said desperately. "I just want to fix engines and be left alone." "What you want," the Empress said, her voice growing hard again, "is irrelevant. You exist. Your bloodline exists. That changes everything." She began to pace, her massive form moving with predatory grace. "The noble houses have been growing restless. 3 assassination attempts in the last year. They sense weakness, succession disputes. But if Lyralei's line lives..." "I said I don't want any part of this," Marcus said, backing away. The Empress fixed him with her burning gaze. You think you have a choice?